Hey everybody, welcome back to part 7 of the Pet Adoption app. In this part here, we're going to learn of how to integrate a theme, like an HTML template theme that's built with Bootstrap. Obviously, it's a Bootstrap framework that we're using, and this is just an HTML template. So how I got here was, in the previous part, I was saying we're going to integrate this so we can create our views for device, for login, logout, and edit profile and all that. And so this is the theme we're going to be using. So I just clicked here on live view, right? So here's your URL. You can go follow it, or you can use whichever theme you want. This is free. So this is the the theme, right? So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this theme first. And once I download that, I'm also going to open another text editor. I want you to go open a new tab and type in atom.io. You probably still have it. I'm going to download atom.io, and I'm going to use a different text editor so I can view this HTML template, because I don't want to mix. Not that I don't want to mix. I mean, just for the purposes of this tutorial and for you too, so for the sake of your sanity, you don't want to mix those two together. Okay, so like on Rails, I'm working here on pet adoption with VS Code, and my new text editor, atom.io, I'm downloading it now, and I'm going to open the zip folder that I just downloaded. So you can look here into my downloads. I'm going to open Atom. I'm going to install that and then drag it over to the applications folder. And then I'm going to unzip this here as well. So I'm just going to pause the video until this happens. Okay. Okay, great. So my Atom, I'm going to open a new Finder window, and I'm going to just click on applications, and I'm going to drag over. As you can see, I had it there already. I'm going to drag this over here, and it's going to open. All right. Now, when Atom opens, it's going to ask you for verification and all that. Now, while that's verifying, I'm going to remove these two. I don't need these two here. I'm going to put them in the trash. All right. So I'm going to double click on the Bootstrap HTML template that we got for free on the internet. I'm going to double click on index.html. It's going to open on the browser. And as you can see here, that's the path. Okay. So it's just an HTML template that you can open in the browser. It means nothing. This is for Atom. So Atom. Okay, so Atom is going to give us this welcome page and everything, and I'm just going to close all that and then uncheck this. Close the welcome page. Close, and close Atom. That's all. So this is the HTML template we're going to be using. As you can see here, we can click on pages, and we have a login screen. We have a create register screen. We've got a bunch of screens that are pretty straightforward, and a bunch of components here, like all the buttons and all that. And these are all like straight up Bootstrap, but like I said, it's going to make our development a lot easier. I wanted to use a paid theme, but then I didn't know if you guys wanted to pay for it, so I decided to go with a free theme. So let's get started on integrating this theme. In the Finder again, earlier we clicked on this Start Bootstrap SB admin folder, and we clicked on index.html just to view it. So as you can see, here's all the folders and files that are in here. Okay. So next thing I want you to do is grab this folder here and drag it over to Atom. Okay. So Atom is going to open up, and inside you're going to see a whole bunch of you're going to see a whole bunch of files, right? And I'm just going to close all that. There's no need for all that. Okay, I don't know why this is open. So you're going to see here, you got your CSS folder, images folder, JavaScript folder, SCSS, vendors. So first things first, just get a little familiar here. If we click on the index.html, you're going to notice a couple of metadatas that we are missing also in our application, which we made a mistake in the beginning. We should have added those, especially this one here. It's extremely important. So I'm going to do everything step by step, but I just want to go over what we're going to do. First thing, we're going to look at the CSS here. It's referring to the relative path right here on this folder. Basically, go to vendor, straight to vendor, and find font awesome -free CSS and all minified.css. So this file here is basically what's doing for in regards to the fonts. And that's why you see here it says custom fonts for this template. So in order for us, what we saw earlier when we clicked on this here, what you saw, like all these fonts, like this icon and all these little tiny icons, all that stuff, that's basically shown here because it's being rendered. And don't skip this or fast forward it because it's quite important. Quite often, a lot of Rails developers, juniors or medium or advanced, they often make mistakes here, and including myself very often. And I just wanted to let you know that it's important to pay attention to the HTML here, what's happening, so you know what files to copy, because you don't want to copy the entire folder. It's too much, right? And so below that, we also have a Google API, so we're going to copy that as well and transfer it over. Next thing you want to do is scroll down to the bottom of the page and look at the JavaScript. As you see here, the Bootstrap JavaScript is Bootstrap and jQuery are here. We've already installed these with Yarn. We've installed Popper.js, and all. Our Bootstrap is phenomenal. It's working fine. Now the core plugin JavaScripts. This is easing.minified.js. I'm not sure if we're going to need this, but regardless, it's important that we know where we're going to put these files when we do need them. Now, I know that the custom scripts, we probably do need this here. That's the admin to minified.js. And if it's here, it means that we need it. Like the chart minified.js and the area demo.js, all of this here is not necessarily needed. But of course, it's here for a reason on this page, because that's what's needed in order for these charts to work. So these are vendors, third-party vendors that are used, small JavaScript, little tiny applications, JavaScript libraries that you can use in order to create a beautiful chart. So you don't really have to add it if we're not going to use charts. So I'm not going to use any of these for now, and I'm not going to add them. But what I will add are those two, and it's good practice for you in how to integrate this with Rails. So let's just start with the vendors first. Let's start with the vendors first, okay? Because that's pretty much the harder one. So what we want to do first is basically come back to Visual Studio Code, and I want you to click on Assets, and then click on JavaScript. And inside of JavaScript, go to Packs, and inside of Packs, create a folder, okay? So right-click and create a folder, and call this vendor folder and hit enter. Now inside this vendor folder, we're going to add all the vendor JavaScripts. Okay, so after you create the folder, you want to click on Packs again, and you want to right click and create a new file and call this vendor.js. So you're going to notice that there is application.js. That's how we had, and you're going to notice also vendor.js, the one we created. It's inside the packs folder, not the vendor folder. Vendor.js is inside the packs folder. And here we are going to import everything that we need from the vendor. So now that we've done this, I want you to open Finder. And in Finder, just go to your project, the Ruby on Rails project, Pet Adoption App. I'm going to double click on it. And then I'm going to click on App. So inside of App, I'm going to click on Assets. And then I'm going to click, actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on JavaScript. And I'm going to select Packs. And I'm going to double click on Vendor. So this is my vendor folder. I'm going to drag and drop what I need here. Okay? So back to Atom. So in the index.html in Atom, our template, Here they're referring to vendor jQuery easing jQuery.easing.minified.js. So it's referring to the minified version of this file. Okay, so this means that we need to access this file in order to access easing.minified.js in order for this JavaScript to work. Okay, now we may or may not need this, but all I want you to be familiar with now, the reason why it's so important to do it right on vendors, what we just did right now, is so that we can import it. All right. So I want you to click back on, come back to Visual Studio Code. And then I want you to, on vendors.js, actually, we need to import this, the entire path. So let me, so import, import, and we're gonna basically add the path, right? And we haven't moved the folder over, so I just wanted to let you know what we're gonna do. All right, in here we're gonna add the path. So come back to Finder. Earlier we had the vendor, our vendor folder open. So I want you to right-click and open a new Finder window. On the new Finder window, find the template that we downloaded in the downloads folder. So this is a template. Double-click on that, and I want you to go to vendor, which is down at the bottom here. Double-click on that also. Now we want to import the jQuery easing. Okay, so double-click on jQuery. Actually, you don't have to double-click on it because we're going to import all these. You see, this is too much, right? We don't need this jQuery easing compatibility, and we don't need the jQuery easing.js. We just need the minified version. All right, so we are gonna just grab that. So I want you to just copy this wording here, the name of the file, inside a vendor, create a new folder, and paste it in. So that's called jQuery easing. Now double-click on jQuery easing. You're gonna be in that folder. Okay, now come back here and grab this jQuery easing.js, copy it, Command C to copy, and then click here and paste it in here. You see what I did? So basically what you're doing is inside the vendor folder, if you double click on it, you'll see jQuery easing, and all we moved is jQuery easing.js. But again, I actually moved the wrong folder, so I'm gonna just throw this in the trash, and I'm gonna grab the minified version because it's better. And I'm gonna paste the minified version in here, jQuery easing.mini.min.js. Okay, so that's all I did. It's super simple. Okay, so if I click away, I'm gonna come back to Visual Studio Code, and over here, I want you to basically grab that path. Okay, so if you click on vendor over here on Visual Studio, I kind of wish there was not so much noise. You're gonna notice that the jQuery easing is here. So you can actually just copy the relative path. Copy a relative path and come here and paste it in. Now, the problem with that is you don't actually need all this. So just go from vendor, jQuery easing, that's all you need. From vendor all the way to minified, and you don't need the JS in the end, actually. You don't need that. Like that, that's fine. Save that. All right. And so close this vendor.js now. We can close also vendor.js and close packs. And the next thing you want to do is we need to import, come back to Atom, and we need to grab this here. I don't think that this is part of vendors. So it says here custom scripts for all pages, custom scripts. So we might want to grab this JavaScript because we might have to modify it. So we're going to consider this as part of our application. Okay, and this is the minified version. And remember, there is an unminified version. The unminified version does not have min. Okay, so we need to You just need to remember that, okay? That's in JavaScripts folder, not the vendor, the JavaScripts folder. So come back again to Finder, and I want you to go back again to your application. Just click back. And inside of packs, you're gonna see application.js. So this is the file we're gonna be editing, okay? And we also need to, so we have the application.js. So we'll come back to Visual Studio and JavaScript, packs, application.js. So over here, you want to import that sbadmin file, okay? So we want to do import, and into, or one quote, doesn't matter. You want to put sbadmin. I think it's sbadmin -admin. I can't remember the name. So it's, let me come back here. Okay, it's JavaScript sbadmin minified. So that's the minified version, but I want this one here, the sbadmin-2.js. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy that. I'm just copying the name. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so sbadmin, and you don't need to put .js in the end. Just leave it as that. Okay, and yeah, just leave it as that, just like that, and then save it. Command S to save. And obviously, since we're importing it, we need to refer to it. We need to add it inside our JavaScript. All right, that's really important, because if we don't add it, then how are we going to import it, right? So we need to actually add it inside the packs folder. All right. Yeah. So come back to Finder, and we're gonna literally copy that. Command C to copy. Okay, and inside of the packs folder, this is the packs folder. Paste it in. Okay. So that's that for the JavaScript. So we're done with the JavaScript. So as you can see here, we have the sbadmin-2.js, and in application.js, we're importing it right here. And so with the vendor, is the same thing. We already talked about the vendor, and we done it. Okay, so you see the structure here. All right, so I'm going to close JavaScript here, and I'm going to come to style sheets now. So in regards to style sheets, we're going to have to add the fonts. That's going to be a problem, but it doesn't have to be a problem. It's quite simple, actually, just using the Rails 6 way. It's a bit different than Rails 5. So you can add the fonts in the public folder to speed up your the compilation, but might as well just do it the way Rails recommends. So inside the assets folder, I want you to create a new folder called fonts. Just leave it like that. That's just how it's done, okay? And then you come to the Finder again, and here I'm inside my application. So what we're gonna do inside of fonts, let me just go back again, click on assets, and this fonts here. This is gonna be the, so you double click on fonts, and in here, we're gonna drag all the fonts. Now come back to Atom again, and you're gonna notice that up at the top, there is this vendor font awesome free all minified.css. Now we don't want the minified because that's just a compressed version. We want the all.css. All right. Now come back to Finder, and you want to click on CSS. No, you want to click on vendor again, and click on font awesome free. So this CSS here, the all minified, that's what they're referring to. But we're going to use this one, all.css. So copy that. And instead of putting it in the fonts, because here we're going to put something else, okay? But I just want you to create the folder. I want you to come back here and click on style sheets. because the all.css is in fact a style sheet. Click on style sheets, double click on that, and paste it in. Okay, so that's done. But we have to obviously move some of the fonts in there. All the fonts in there. That was just a style sheet we were dealing with just a second ago. Okay, so these web fonts is what we're going to need to move over to fonts. Okay, and I'll tell you why in a second. Come back to Atom. Inside of Atom, I want you to open the CSS file that we just copied, which is inside vendor, and go to font awesome-free and click on CSS and all.css. Okay, you're gonna notice if you do a Command F and type in @font-face and click find, you're gonna notice here this is basically you're defining your font face, and this is really important. Okay, so this won't work in Rails, so you kind of have to make some modifications. Okay, so leave that as is for now. I'm just going to close this here. Leave that as is. Come back to Visual Studio Code. Remember, in the style sheets, we copied it over. So I'm going to click on all.css, and I want you to rename this all.css. Rename it. This is so important to rename it to SCSS. So put an SCSS there and hit enter. So all.scss. And I want you to do a Command F and type in shift @font-face. You're gonna notice this. There is the same thing that we saw earlier in the Atom. Okay, so there we go. That's where we are. I'm just gonna close this here so it doesn't highlight it. Now we want to change all the source URL. You want to change this here all to font-URL. Okay, and it's not going to be asset URL. It's just going to be font-URL. Okay, and yeah, that's all we're going to do. It's not going to be hard. It's going to be simple. We can do search and replace, but you want to be careful with search and replace, right? Yeah. We want to do font, so grab that there and do a Command F, and here we do font-URL. That's all you gotta do. There's 1 out of 18 here, so be very careful. If you're working with a different theme, you might do a lot of problems. So all we're changing is everything in the font face, those from here all the way to here, like these highlighted ones. Okay, so I'm going to click on change all. So everything's been changed to font-URL. Okay, and the next thing you want to do is you want to remove everything from the first, everything from here to here, because that's just a relative path in HTML. You don't need to do that here. Okay, so just grab anything that says web fonts, do a Command F like that. So you're going to search and replace, and you're going to replace it with nothing, like that, with nothing. And you're just going to click replace all. All right. So you want to do Command S to save this. And the last thing we want to do also is, so that's done. We're done with the fonts. We want to move over these fonts, because remember, you see this .eot. All these fonts that you see, the woof, all these fonts are basically earlier, before we changed the path. They are inside of this folder here. Inside of web fonts. It's all these fonts here. So these are the fonts we need to drag over. So I want you to grab the first inside web fonts, highlight them all, and make sure you're inside the fonts folder in your Ruby on Rails web application, the fonts folder that we created. And I want you to copy these, and come here and paste them. Just like that. Okay, perfect. So we pasted the fonts there, so it's referring to them. So now we can close those. So the next thing you need to do is come back to Atom. I'm going to close all.css. We don't need that anymore. But what we do need to do is go back to that index.html page, and we need to make sure that we're not missing anything. Yeah, we're missing one more thing that we just didn't do, which is the sbadmin minified.css. So instead of using the minified again, I'm going to use the normal one. So I'm going to come back here to Finder, and remember, this is in CSS sbadmin CSS. Now this is part of the custom styles. Okay, it's part of the custom styles, and we want to be able to change these custom styles. It's not a vendor. Some people may call it a vendor. I don't call this a vendor. This is just part of the theme. So click on CSS, and this is the file we're going to copy instead of the minified one. Okay. Now we're in assets here, so I want you to click on style sheets and come back here. Copy the sbadmin2 -css, Command C, come here and paste it in. So, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to come back to Visual Studio and look at the application.css. You don't need to do anything here. This is done, okay? So I'm going to close application.css, and I'm going to leave all.css open in case we have any issues. Application.js, we've imported the custom JavaScript, okay? And lastly, we're just going to look at the JavaScript here. We don't need to do that. We've already talked about this. So in the style sheets, we have all.css, which is for the fonts, okay? We have sb-admin-2.css, which is obvious. It's the admin CSS, the customizations that the theme makers made. And that's all you need to do. So from here, I'm going to just stop the server. There's no need, but I'm going to do a Control-C just to stop the server. I'm going to do a Rails S, start the server. And while that's loading, we need to test that this works. So I'm going to come back to Atom, and I'm going to grab, one last thing. I want to grab this styles here, this style sheet, copy that. This is for Google API. Come back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to find layouts, views, layouts, application.html.erb. So at the bottom of this, I'm going to paste the style sheet, the link to Google APIs. Okay. Now we also need to come back again. Remember, I told you earlier we missed all these metas. That's really important, especially this viewport. This viewport here, it's so important because it's never gonna be, it's never gonna show properly on mobile. Okay, it's never gonna be responsive without this viewport. So grab all this as well, copy that, come back to Visual Studio Code in html.erb, and just after the head here, paste that in, and just make sure it looks good, like that. Another space like that. Another space, so we can have some space to breathe. And come back here, come back to Atom, and let's just see what else. Okay, that's it in regards to styles. So we want to grab now this wrapper for the purposes of testing only. Okay, now I want you to look at this wrapper here. It ends at the bottom, okay? And all you gotta do is you can just grab the whole thing like that. It's up to you. But I'm just gonna collapse this here, and I'm gonna just do this, highlight it, and I'm gonna uncollapse it again. And notice, if you don't click on anything and you just scroll down, you're gonna notice it highlights from the top to the end of that wrapper. And all I want you to do now is do a Command-C to copy it, come back to Visual Studio Code, and for now, just for now, we are gonna delete this, and I'm gonna paste in what I copied. That's all. I'm going to do a command S to save. We're going to do it just to test it for just a few minutes, for a few seconds to test it. Then we're going to put it back as it was. Come back to Google Chrome. Our server is running now. Type in localhost 3000, localhost 3000. And our theme should be loaded. There we go. So there we go. We got a theme that's loaded. In case the fonts don't show here, just make sure you follow my tutorial carefully. You probably missed something, or you misconfigured something, or during the search and replace in the all.css, you did something wrong. Okay? During the search, remember that. During the search and replace in the all.css, you've done something wrong. So this is all we did is we changed the URL to font-URL, and we ensured that we removed that relative path that we had in HTML, like for HTML purposes. We just put that, and that's it. We didn't mess with anything else. We didn't mess. We didn't mess with anything else. We didn't mess with none of the configuration files. We just added. We played around. We did pretty good, I think, so far. And look, we are not going to use every single file they give us in the HTML template, because it'll be ridiculous to load so many things at the same time. So right now, that's all we need. So on the next, actually, I need to push this to Bitbucket. So I'm going to show you. I think I've shown you in the past, but I'm going to do a Control-C here. And I'm going to do a git status. Okay, now you're going to see that I'm inside the branch called new master. And this is the branch I want you to follow. Okay, and you're going to notice a bunch of files that are added. These are files that have been added. And then these are files that have been modified. Okay, so modified and added files. Now I'm going to do a git add period, space period. So now if I do a git status again, they're going to be all green. They're ready for the commit. And then I'm going to do a git git commit dash m inside integrated new template sb dash admin. Okay, now I'm going to say part 7. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do a git push like that. But later on, if you ever see that this is called the master, just remember that I've made the new master into master. But for now, it's called new master. Okay, guys, see you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks.